There should be a wee message just
What
comes
I'll
up,
do
so we'll
is,
wait for that. With a link to our privacy notice.
there we go.
There we are.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay, right. Well, a small false start, but here we go.
That's all right.
Okay, so if we just dive right in. So first of all, if you could just give us a really brief outline of kind of who you are and the work that you do, or sort of what your organisation does.
Sure. My name's Ian Bruce. I'm the Acting Ethical Standards Commissioner for Scotland. Our office investigates complaints about the conduct of MSPs, councillors and board members, and we also oversee the appointments process used by the Scottish ministers to make chair and non-executive appointments to the boards of Scotland's public bodies.
So some complex things to be
Yes.
to be navigating. Absolutely.
Yes.
So yeah, why are hybrid meetings important, either to you or to your organisation, really?
Recruitment and retention was an issue for our organisation at the point in time at which I took over. And I decided it was very important for us to put in place, more or less straight away, a suite of new policies which were about staff well-being during the pandemic. I think key to that was being flexible as an employer, and we endeavoured to the best of our abilities to ensure that everyone's needs were assessed, properly understood, and met where we were able to meet them. And clearly the upshot of that is that a great deal of staff are home working primarily, although they do come into the office occasionally. So just in terms of general communications with the staff and governance with the senior management team, we had to put in place arrangements so that we could meet in hybrid ways, and that's meant a variety of different things in different settings. But it's worked particularly well. You know, everyone's gotten their head around the technology, and the communications across the team are really good. But hybrid working has had to be put in place in order to allow us to work effectively in that way.
Great. So what would you say, do you think, for your organisation, the key advantages of hybrid, sort of compared to either fully face-to-face or fully online, do you think?
I do think primarily it's to allow us to work as a modern organisation that values its people. That's what we do at our heart. People fundamentally is our only resource. You know, we rent our building, office accommodation. Other than that, it's the tech which we own. But people are our main resource. It's where most of our expenditure goes, and anything we can do to ensure that they're safe, healthy, and happy is really important to me as the leader of the organisation. Hybrid is the primary way in which we can maintain good communications and enable staff to fulfil their roles. We couldn't insist that everyone come back into the office. I think that would have likely led to turnover. There's been talk of the Great Resignation, but people have looked around themselves, and flexibility seems to fit into their lifestyle better. I think increasingly the CIPD's evidence shows that allowing people flexibility actually does lead to an increase in productivity as well. So for me, that's really important. Some people do still want to go into the office, so you know we certainly couldn't be in a position where everyone was working remotely. People do miss the social aspect, so notwithstanding that Teams and other platforms are helpful for communications, it's never quite the same as face-to-face. And that's particularly true when you're onboarding new people. And clearly people's home circumstances differ quite substantially. You know, we've got young people who are working from home, but perhaps, you know, they're sharing a flat, they're sharing broadband, and you know, they like to come in perhaps more frequently than some of the others. So there's the social aspect, but also the working circumstances sometimes suit them better in the office. So we needed to find different ways of accommodating everyone's different needs, and that's what we've done and are doing.
Nice. Yeah, I think it really does seem like you say, it's the modern world. It's the way that we have to go, because that realization of people at the core of workplaces, and the fact that it's about productivity and meeting those individual needs, whether that's being able to work from home or being able to be in the office, actually then, yeah, that's when you get the most out of your full team.
Indeed, and that's what we need. I'm not sure everyone necessarily realises this. There's been a lot of talk about change over the piece, and I'm getting a bit long in the tooth. So I feel qualified to talk about this. But in every role I've had, change has been a constant. And I think how you react to that, well, in terms of leadership, it's important for other people to see that you are able to embrace change, and that the organisation is able to embrace change. And if it does mean new ways of working, then it's important that we embrace those collectively for everyone's benefit, really.
Yeah, I think one of the things that seems to have come out from our conversations with a lot of people really is this idea of kind of equity and hybrid working, and that a more diverse range of needs can be met, or people can actually express needs that they didn't necessarily feel they could.
Yes, and I've got no issue with that rebalancing. I have a union background, but you know, I've been in management for a long time as well. But you cannot underestimate the importance of staff happiness to the productivity and effectiveness of your organisation.
Absolutely, yeah. It's on so many levels. It's just the key thing, isn't it? Really,
it is. It's fundamental, absolutely fundamental. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of happy, I don't know if you can hear the
yes.
the interference that's coming from my
yes.
house. Always the way.
Yeah, I've got a relatively young. He's just turned 7 months. I have a puppy myself, so I'm afraid I've had to close the door. It's all right. He's got company. My partner works from home as well. 3 out of 5 working days at the moment, so he's in good company.
Yeah. I think that's the advantage of a dog, is that dogs will stay out. Cats, if I tried to shut them out, they make more noise, and
yes.
yeah. So
I wish I could say he's that well behaved, but he isn't.
Well, 7 months. That's
yes.
That's fair.
Yeah, in fairness to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been one of the benefits of hybrid working as well. Everyone's been introduced to young Bennett, because I can hold him up on screen and he can wave a little paw. So that's quite good for staff morale too.
It is actually, it's an interesting aspect, isn't it, that we've been able to sort of see into people's lives,
yes.
In a way that we weren't able to before, and you can kind of connect with people in a different way because you see a greater insight into the whole person sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, although I do have a background up, and I do most of the time. Given what I do, I don't think people are particularly keen on seeing the mantelpiece in my kitchen. So
fair enough.
It's very cluttered.
Well, they say clutter feeds creativity if you're a creative person.
All right, okay. So I like that. I'll hang on to that. I'll keep that from today. Thank you.
That's the strategy I always go for when I've got my bookshelf in the background. But so I suppose moving on from kind of the advantages and things, what do you think are the challenges? I guess challenges of hybrid working, but also challenges of hybrid meetings, particularly.
Sure. There are a number, and unsurprisingly, they're more often than not technology related. So, I mean, clearly there were a number of companies who, I'm not going to say jumped on the bandwagon. They saw an opportunity to provide a service that, people weren't regularly using previously, and that's been great. And the reality is, we'd set up all the tech anyway, thanks to a very foresighted head of corporate services in our office. We had Teams and all the rest of it set up before there was a pandemic set in, so we had the tech, but we had to learn how to use it. And then over and above that, there were questions of reliability. We were clearly out of the office for a good long while alongside everyone else in the public sector, so exclusively working from home for a period. But we knew that when we were returning to the office, there were going to be particular challenges with hybrid meetings, and so we had to organise a suite of additional tech. We had a large meeting room anyway. We have a large office, but we did have to organise some additional tech for it's a bit like a boardroom. So we're talking about large screen, an adjustable camera with Zoom settings, a speaker that could sit in the middle of the table that everyone could hear on. So that's fine, the tech all went in place, but it falls down occasionally. And that leads you to think about what are our fallbacks in this situation if the tech falls down. Some of the interviews I conduct can be quite sensitive as well. So, it's important that people understand that, everything is going to work okay in those circumstances, or we have a backup if it doesn't necessarily. So that's important. The dynamics in hybrid meetings are different as well, I think it's fair to say. Particularly when they've been used to meeting remotely, and then you have a proportion of people in a meeting, and they're there in person, and the others are joining remotely. And some tensions have arisen, and we're thinking of ways to address those. But I think MS Teams, it's a bit more formal when there are a number of you, and you set these ground rules about raising your hand when you want to speak and this sort of thing. But if someone's in person with the room, I think their natural inclination is not to put their hand up. It maybe reminds you of being at primary school, and they'll dive in with a comment. And a lot of the people I work with are not shy about sharing their views, which is great. I mean, I welcome that. But it does mean that those who are on screen and sitting at home can feel excluded from the conversation, which they're looking onto it, and it seems warm and friendly and in person at the other end of their screen. So that's a particular challenge, I would say, as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's it's one thing to have a fully online meeting, like you say, you've got the kind of structures that we've all kind of learned and adapted to, but it is that bringing together of the benefits of in person with also like you were saying about the advantages of the flexibility of being able to offer hybrid, and how do you actually kind of navigate that merging, really?
Yeah, it's about being inclusive, but that's difficult because inevitably, your experience in person and your experience in the virtual world, those are very different things inevitably, and they will look different on either side of that digital wall, and feel different. So it's how does one ensure that one is being inclusive in those circumstances? And I think that's still a challenge for me, and something that I'll continue to work on.
Yeah, that was something that I was wanting to ask, really, is what do you kind of foresee in terms of going forward and kind of establishing hybrid opportunities as a sort of standard, because it's something that that you recognise as being valuable, but in order to kind of overcome maybe some of those sorts of challenges.
Yeah, so I think what we've all learned now, pretty much everyone, is etiquette and online meetings, and that really had to be put in place, because otherwise, you had situations arising where people were posting irrelevant stuff, maybe in chats or speaking over each other. So we did have to adhere to a certain set of rules, etiquette for want of a better expression. I think we need to develop more in that area, but for hybrid, so that people have an equally valid and experience and feel included regardless of how they are joining that meeting. But I think again it is going to be about setting some ground rules so that those meetings work appropriately for everyone. And I'm not sure I'm quite there yet, but it's something I ponder in advance of every hybrid meeting that I attend or run.
It's an interesting thought as well in terms of thinking about whether, because in-person meetings have been, we're so familiar with them, whether that aspect of etiquette sometimes just is taken for granted, and so we've sort of forgotten that actually there is like an underlying etiquette to the way that meetings are, but we don't sort of actually establish it or put those ground rules in, and so it's kind of bringing those two things together now.
So there's an element of that, but I mean, to be honest with you, a skillful chair knows what the etiquette is, and has done for a long time. I mean, that's you build up that experience, but those chairing skills clearly have to adapt now in order to chair hybrid meetings, and it is different. As I've said, a proportion of the people that I work alongside us, they're very bright people, and they have no difficulty challenging, and that's valuable for me and for our organisation, because they will ask questions about what you're engaged in and how you're engaging in it, and those things help you think and improve. Chairing individuals like that in a meeting where everyone is present. Well, I used to use the equivalent of the talking stick, and and that was about making sure, not just that those who did like to talk more than the others were given those opportunities, but in a structured way, but also that those that didn't necessarily feel the need to contribute, but whose contribution you needed to draw out, were given, equal opportunities to say their piece as well. We need to find a way of doing that again, but in that hybrid meeting world, and I'm sure the skill set is similar, but how things are managed is going to have to be different, and it is going to require certainly more thinking on my part, and I'm sure any others who are chairing meetings in that way.
That's interesting, isn't it? That idea that that perhaps in some ways hybrid meetings kind of highlight some of the issues that have always been the case with any meeting, but like you say, if you're chairing a meeting well, or if a meeting is well facilitated and well structured and well planned, you can avoid a lot of these issues which will be kind of exacerbated in a hybrid context.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you've said, that your organisation, you kind of felt that you were sort of a little bit ahead of the game in terms of the sort of adaptation to virtual. What do you think would be your kind of, if there would be people that might be watching this who have really not considered hybrid at all, or not established hybrid structures but are looking to, what would your sort of key recommendations or sort of key learnings or suggestions to them be, do you think, in terms of positive hybrid meeting experiences?
I think I'd probably go back to my original point. Technology is technology, and it changes all the time, and and things improve and get better, but fundamentally we're talking about people, and technology is just a tool to enable you to do certain things better than perhaps you otherwise might. If it weren't for this, then you and I would be on a telephone call, which is quite old tech, but perfectly legitimate still way of working. and previously, where people couldn't join in person, then they'd be joining by way of conference call. So now we've got this new technology where you can see and hear people at the same time, and they can add comments and all the rest of it as well, and that's all great. For people who are looking to step into hybrid, I would say do your research and have a look at the technology that's available to you and see what works for you and your organization, but see what works for your people too. It's not sensible just to impose things on people. So find out how they feel about perhaps different platforms, different ways of meeting, whether or not different types of meeting will be better depending on the subject matter that's due to be discussed. We have social meetings online, for example, and that's great. And there are very few ground rules when it comes to those. But where you have more formal meetings, you're going to have a think about what your inputs are going to be and what you expect to get out at the end of that. So I suppose, yeah, do your research and don't think that one size is going to fit all, because it doesn't. And so adapt to ensure that you're meeting everyone's needs if you can. And I think from my perspective, that will be the way that you get the most out of the possibilities that are in front of you. And as I've said as well, change is a constant. So this does open up new possibilities. And again, it is about making you a better organisation for the people who work for it, but also when they're happy, everyone who comes into contact with your office is going to be happier with the service that they receive from you, or whatever it is that you happen to do. So yeah, do your research, and don't think once that's done, that's an end to it. Things change very regularly. New opportunities will arise in relation to technology. Who knows? This time next year, we could all be meeting in a virtual room online with avatars. I'm not ruling that out. So yeah, try to stay ahead of the game. There are lots of resources out there. CIPD as usual, very good in terms of what works for people, what doesn't. And clearly you've got your own project on at the moment, and I'm sure a great deal of really good advice will come out of that, and I'll be very interested to see it when it comes out.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it is, like you said at the start, that transformation that we saw between the start of the pandemic and this kind of surge in opportunities for virtual collaboration, and the same will follow in terms of going, okay, well, if we're not looking at purely online but hybrid, the technology companies will meet the challenge. I imagine they're quite good at that, aren't they?
Oh no, doubtless they will. So yeah, just keep reviewing and don't think you know it all. Nobody does.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, a great lesson. Never sit on your laurels and think, oh, we've sorted that now. We're done.
No, because things will change again, next year and the year after. And,
yeah. And like you say, that experience of what is appropriate for a hybrid meeting or what might not be, and making those calls in terms of saying, well, do you know what, this is more appropriate as an in-person full meeting because of the outcomes that we need to achieve, and navigating through that kind of developing knowledge base as we all learn more about it.
So. And learn collectively. Staff survey is very important to me, but we surveyed staff on what their preferences were going to be, but I'm a firm believer that people in a group, particularly where it's a very diverse group, make better decisions. It makes sense to me to ask people what's working for them and what isn't, and adapt accordingly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And as well, there's often that greater sense of buy-in if you've been asked your opinion, and even if then you can go, well, you wanted this, but actually the majority wanted this. People generally then are happier to go, oh well, that's fine then. Okay, I'll go with that, rather than being told,
yes,
this is what we're using, full stop.
No, that doesn't work for me. No, and I don't think it would work for the staff or anyone else that we work with. And and I wouldn't blame them for a moment. So.
No, absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much. I don't want to keep you much longer because we said it would be sort of a half an hour tops, and I know you're a busy person. Yeah, thank you so much for giving your time and for sharing your insights and pearls of wisdom. If you if you're able to send me the recording, or will it come up in my Teams, or am I a guest? I can never remember.
Have a wee look in the chat. I should be able to send you a link to it actually, that you can then download. So
then I'll download it. Fantastic. That'd be wonderful. And then we'll kind of keep you posted as to what is happening with it, and when we've got a kind of an edit where we've picked out the bits and put them together, and any learning that we've got about hybrid meetings that we can pass on.
Yeah, do your best with the content.
We'll do.
I trust you. Any friend of Duncan's and all that. Okay. Yeah, I'll get a link to you. If it doesn't work out, just email me. And
Amazing.
Probably best to mark it urgent, simply because one of the other challenges of this whole thing is data protection, obviously. So notwithstanding wanting to do exactly what everyone would like to do, we've got good governance to think of, and adhering to the law, which is quite important for our office. So that's an issue as well. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the link only lasts for 7 days and then it vanishes. So if it doesn't work out, you let me know straight away.
Absolutely. Yes, right. I will do. Yes, we're in the same boat. So yeah.
All right, nice
That's
to meet
great.
you.
Lovely to meet you too, Ian.
Cheers.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.